Welcome to my dad's car. Enjoy!
Welcome to My Dad's Car, a podcast discussing our personal relationship with automotive nostalgia. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be about your dad's car. It can be your mum's, your grand's, your parents', guardians, or even a neighbour's. If it made an impression, let's talk about it. Hi Adam.
Hello.
How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, we're good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Afternoon, Adam. How you doing? All right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Cool. So I think, obviously, we've never met, Adam. I think you commented on something we did, and you made, I think, a comment about the fact you know all your father's registration numbers or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, not all of them, but yeah, I was sort of trolling your feed, wasn't I? Really? Because it sort of said, oh, so and so as using the list that his dad gave to him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't need a list from my dad. I know exactly what's going on. So
it sounds like the sort of challenge you used to see on the programme You Bet. I don't know if you remember. They'd have like 20 number plates lined up.
Was it a Matthew Kelly?
Yeah, I think he took over from Brucey. And then I believe Darren Day took over from Matthew Kelly. I think that was the end of the show.
Yeah, I actually thought about doing a You Bet challenge. I'd completely forgotten about that. But I thought about doing a You Bet challenge with engine notes. So this was when I was a kid, when You Bet was on. I thought I'd be able to tell a mini engine note from an Escort engine note or something like that. So
yeah,
I actually sort of considered going into it.
That does sound like the sort of one they would have had on there already, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe. So there you go.
Bit trickier with the electric cars now, isn't it?
It would be now, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Just the noise of the tyre on the road. That's all you get.
Yeah.
Bit of a whir.
And could you tell the difference between a Golf R and a Mercedes A45 with the pop and bang remap? I don't suppose so.
All a bit generic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, should we jump in, Adam?
Yeah.
We start these all the same, which is basically asking, what's your earliest car memory?
Yeah, so it's actually, I noticed you phrased that as car memory, and I was listening to Ed Little's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
His episode last night, and you said motoring memory. So I thought,
it could be either.
Yeah, I thought, motoring memory, great, I'm safe. But yeah, because mine involves a motorbike.
Okay, cool.
Because it's literally, I can remember waving my dad off from the front door when he had his motorbike, and I would have been, well, effectively, he took it apart in 1981.
Okay.
And it's been in 14 boxes ever since in the garage. So I had to be 3 or younger.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember waving him off as he went off to work and I was stood at the front door. So yeah, it occurred to me that's probably the earliest memory I've got.
Anything to do with that journey? Is that why it's in many pieces? He obviously came back in one piece, I really hope.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently it was throwing him off. So like he'd go around a corner and fall off it. And this was something he decided this was something to do with. Did he like a
drink?
Strangely enough, no.
Landlord of the Red Lion.
Yeah, that was him. You know him. Yeah. No. Apparently, he got the frame checked out, and like every tube in the frame was bent.
Oh God.
So basically, he'd bought a wrong one, and the only way of fixing it was to take it apart and get the frame straightened out. So there is a frame in his garage as a sort of. It's just sitting there with boxes all around it, and that's been straightened. It's been stripped and powder coated, I think, and all of that sort of thing. But he's just never got round to rebuilding it.
So what did he go to after the loss of the bendy bike?
Sounds like a Boris Johnson initiative.
Yeah, he's never had a motorbike since. Back then, he was running a car and a motorbike, and effectively in the summer months he'd ride the motorbike, and in the winter months he'd use the car. But yeah, he just decided, okay, I'm safer in a car. I'll just stick to a car now. So,
do you remember what type of car that was?
So the car back then, was a Saab 96.
Oh, cool.
So Saab 96 V4 would have been a K reg. I can't remember the reg of that one, I'm afraid, but 72 K reg, I know that.
Nice.
What colour?
Well, I was thinking about that earlier. It was white. It came out of the factory white. For some reason, when you consider he would have bought it when I was born, well, I know he bought it when I was born, which I shall go into in a moment. And so it would have been 6 years old when I was born. And it was covered in grey primer rust spots. I remember he had to go over all the rust and paint them in grey primer. So I remember that car being white and polka dot grey, effectively. But yeah, the reason he bought a Saab was because he had this thing about rear seatbelts, which really makes me a bit odd as a 45-year-old, that I've always been strapped into the back of the car. So I haven't got any of those tales. Like my wife's got tales of standing up between the front seats and talking to her grandparents as she drove.
Yeah.
But I've got none of that. I was always strapped into the back seat, effectively. Apparently in 78, as far as the used car market was concerned, I suppose, the only cars that had that option for fitting rear seatbelts were a VW Beetle or a Saab 96. So
wow.
Yeah, so we ended up with a Saab 96. My dad was a big rally fan, or is a big rally fan. And we used to go to the Lombard RAC rally when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
So I guess he was sort of unduly influenced by Stig Blomqvist and his exploits in a Saab 96. And so yeah, we had a Saab 96 so that I could be strapped into the back. And apparently the Britax car seat was sort of like 4 points. So the back seat was effectively this car seat in the middle with 4 points. Okay. So nobody else could get in the back seat. There was literally my mum and dad in the front and me in this Britax car seat.
Like ratchet strapping down a roof rack.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
like you're in a McLaren in the central position back there.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Well, the way my dad drove it probably was.
What happened to the Saab, Adam? Did it go on for a while, or
so then my brother came along, and this is why I can we sort of remember when it comes to the motorbike. My brother arrived in 82, and he has no recollection of the motorbike being up together because it never was in his lifetime. Basically, it was taken apart in 81. But yeah, as a result of him coming along, we ended up with a Saab 99.
Okay.
So he moved up in the Saab world, basically. But that's I mentioned on Instagram the other day, there was that picture of the orange Saab 99 going along. Yeah. So it basically looked like that. It was red, and it was the EMS model. So that's the 2-litre injection. So it was a bit fancier than that one that was in the picture I tagged the other day. But effectively, it was that sort of thing. So the Saab 99 3-door hatchback.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it was as I say, it was the EMS. That was effectively the top of the range before they introduced the turbo. So that was a pretty cool thing.
What did your father do? It seems to be the car of kind of the engineer or the designer, doesn't it, the Saab?
Seems like it, doesn't it? Yeah, he was a metalwork and woodwork teacher.
Okay.
So, or design technology, CDT, as it all became. It I don't know about you guys. It seemed to change every other year when we were at school. Yeah, so that's what he did. So yeah, I think he probably had, because they say Saabs are for like architects, don't they, and that sort of thing. And so yeah, I think he must have had that sort of vibe, really. That Saabs were the sensible thinking man's car, I guess.
Definitely seems to be a theme of once you have a Saab, you end up getting another, or maybe 2 or 3 in the end, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, he actually the EMS, because it had injection, and I suppose it was quite early injection with it because that was a 78 T-Reg, and in the end the injection went around the mid-80s, and I think it was too much to repair it, so he basically sold it off to a guy who, as I recall, he had a turbo that he'd crashed and he needed a body shell, basically. So he was going to get everything. He was going to gut the turbo and put it into this. So he sold it to him, and he wanted to get a Saab 900. So you're right. He was thinking, I'll get another Saab. He was going to get a Saab 900i 16 valve. So not the turbo 16S that we all really love with the 3-spoke wheels and the body kit. This was effectively the non-turbo. It sort of looked quite similar, but was the non-turbo version. But he ended up in a Nova SR. So I don't know how he changed, how he switched like that, but
quite the turnaround, isn't it? I guess, like you were describing the Saab and also the Nova SR, it was a little bit like if you're familiar with Volkswagens, like the Golf Driver to the Golf GTI, almost, isn't it? Kind of the sheep in wolf's clothing to that extent.
Yeah.
So obviously still a fairly fruity car, but not quite the sort of the pinnacle, but dressed up in a tracksuit, but maybe not going to win the race. Yeah,
that's literally the theme of his cars, to be fair. He's always had not the top one, the one below. So rather than a Nova GTE, he had a Nova SR. And after the Nova SR, he had a Corsa SRI.
Okay.
So not the Corsa GSI, Corsa SRI. And he's had a Fiesta Z-Tech as well, but not the Z-Tech S, the 1.4 Z-Tech, not the 1.6 Z-Tech S. So, and he's had a succession of Mini Coopers, the current shape Mini Coopers.
Okay.
But yeah, always a Cooper. I've sort of said, do you not fancy a Cooper S? Wouldn't that be fun? Supercharged Cooper S. And no. Cooper, that's all I need. Yeah.
But he always goes for the silver option at the car wash, doesn't he? Never goes large at a McDonald's or anything like that.
Yes. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. He's not one for washing his cars, so I've never really tested that.
We'll come on to that.
Yeah, I distinctly remember him driving along our country lane when it had rained, because he knew there'd be puddles, and if he drove along it quick enough, the puddles would go over it, and that would give it a semblance of a wash.
So obviously he's gone from a Saab, which is a fairly decent sized vehicle, and then he's obviously jumped into a Nova. Was that the family car, or
Yeah.
Did your mum have a car as well, or?
Yeah, well, she had a Nova as well. Both 3 doors.
Also the SR?
No. So effectively, my dad has this view that 3-door shells are stronger than 5-door shells.
Yeah.
So as a result, he thinks a 3-door car is a much more sensible family car because it's a stronger car as far as he's concerned.
Yeah.
But yeah, what that means is our family cars were 2 3-door Novas. So he had a Nova SR, and Mum had a Nova Swing. So a Nova,
yes,
it was a 1.2, but it had the SR wheels and a few bits, just looked a bit jauntier. So that's what she had until she pulled out in front of an MR2 on a national speed limit road, and the Nova got barrel rolled into a hedge, or over a hedge, I should say. She ended up in a field and then hospital.
Jeez.
She's all right. She was fine. But
it's good to hear.
So then she ended up with a Nova 1 litre, but it was a beige one, still 3-door. But after that really cool silver Swing, to go to a poverty spec 1 litre beige Nova was a real come down, But
I've never heard of the Swing.
Yeah.
What's the where did that sit in the sort of Nova hierarchy?
I think it was just an extra sticker.
Presumably it would be easy to park, called a Swing, but
yeah.
There was a Merit as well, wasn't it? A Nova Merit.
Yeah, I think probably a Nova Swing was like a Nova Merit, but with just a few extra bits, I imagine. I think they had a lot of special editions. I don't know if they had special editions which were sort of dealer things, really. The dealer got a car and then chucked a load of stuff at it. It was a genuine Vauxhall special edition, but it was. I think they only made it I think they made it in B Reg, and that was it. So it's just a certain amount were made on a B in '84, and
nice.
She had one and then killed one.
Where do we go next, Adam, after the Novas? I'm enjoying this run through so far.
Yeah, like I say, after that, it was the Corsa SRIs.
Mm-hmm. So they had those Novas for quite a while then, because the Corsa didn't come out till the early 90s, I guess. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, those Novas, they weren't bought new. I think they were bought second hand.
Okay.
But probably relatively new.
Yeah.
But yeah, they discovered new in 93, basically. So if we jump to my mum quickly, she got in first, and she got an Astra estate. So on a 93L.
Yeah.
Got it on the 1st of August, back when that was the plate change. And clue there, she got an Astra estate. At last, we got back doors, we got a big boot, and it was all based on the fact that we're picking up your grandparents, and the poor sods are having to get in the back of this Nova. It'd make a lot more sense if we had some back doors. And I'm sort of thinking, well, there's me and my brother. We've been clambering in the back. We're teenagers now.
It's been quite an exciting time for a brand new car to turn up. I do remember when you said about the plate change day coming over, or the new ones coming out. That would be a thing for like my brother and I, or my dad, to sort of spot. Oh, look, there's a K-Reg car there.
Yeah.
But obviously nowadays they're 10 a penny, aren't they? They're everywhere. New cars.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, but I was exactly the same. Yeah, I remember 1st of August being excited to see whatever the new reg was. I remember around that early 90s time reading an autocar magazine where one of the journalists became a trade plater for the day, so they went round delivering brand new cars on August the 1st. And I just thought that was an amazing article. I was just, look at all these new cars.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was, that was pretty cool that they got a new car. It was on I think choices 1, 2, 3 or whatever they called it, the PCP back then, the finance. And I think they had a GM credit card, so they used to build up points. And this is why my mum got hers in 93. And then my dad, 1st of August 94, got a Corsa SRI. And I think it was because they spent another year building up GM points on the credit card that they could then use against the purchase of the Corsa. So yeah, it was slightly galling because I would have been just past 16 when he part-exed the Nova SR for the Corsa. I wish he'd have kept it and said, "Here you go, son. Have this Nova SR when you're 17." That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? But yeah, that was never an option, unfortunately. I guess he needed it as the deposit for the car. But yeah, it was very cool. It was the Corsa SRI was in Caribbean blue. So I don't know if you remember that turquoise, metallic turquoise colour they did.
Quite bright, wasn't it?
So, yeah. So actually, we're talking about him being a boring guy, but crikey, he went for the coolest colour there. But so still 3-door for the man of the house, the dad in the little Corsa, and my mum, she's only 4'10", so little 4'10" mum in a big Astra estate, and my dad in a little Corsa SRI. So we're a bit quirky in that respect, I guess.
Do you recall any sort of memorable long journeys at all, Adam, or sort of regular trips that you might do in the cars that you might remember?
Yeah, well, so we didn't go abroad until I was 13. So we used to go on holiday in Cornwall. So I remember trips. I grew up in Worcestershire, so I remember trips down to Cornwall. What I hadn't realised, even though I do remember those trips, apparently there was some driving through the night. So apparently my dad worked out that, to avoid the traffic, made a lot more sense to just pack us sleeping into the back of the car and dash down to Cornwall at God knows what speed, with no one on the roads. So
must confess that I sampled that method myself this year for the first time coming home. So I must officially officially be an old Victor Meldrew now.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing it again. I'm telling you that now. I'll definitely be doing it again.
I don't blame you. It's a nightmare. We sometimes, because I'm in Somerset now and my parents are still in Worcestershire, so when I have to do that trip up north up the M5, if we time it wrong, it's just horrendous, the traffic. But in terms of notable trips, I was going to say, when we were talking about a 3-door Nova being the family car, I remember when we were 14, we went and stayed in a gîte in Brittany for our holiday. Yeah. And on the way back, my folks decided we should do the hypermarket wine trip. So we went to the hypermarket at Calais. We were already, full up with holiday gear. And so, they literally, my brother and I got in the back. I would have been, so I was 14, and so my brother would have been 10. And we had to get in the back, and then they just stacked stuff around us, basically.
In the back of a Nova?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable, isn't it? You took a hatchback on holiday, and then you did a booze cruise.
Yeah. It's just something else, yeah. So
you must have been pinned up against the window, Adam, with a lack of space.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Well, I think I was just sort of having to clutch a box or something, or the clinking box all the way home. But yeah, it's not like I could even benefit from it. It was just, the folks want to get drunk on the cheap. we got to put up with it.
Well, you've got the story to tell now, haven't you? That's the benefit.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But that only a year later, we then got that Astra, which would have been a lot more suited to it. But there you go.
Do you recall music in the car? Did they have the radio on, or any cassettes? Maybe a cassette that was stuck in the machine or found in the car when they bought it?
Yeah. Not quite, but I've got my brother thinks I'm odd on this. For some reason, he hasn't been affected by it. But even though generally my music tastes are fairly heavy, I've got a real thing for level 42.
Okay.
And it's simply because in my dad's car, there was a level 42 tape, which was called Level Best. It was their greatest hits. They do have some.
I see what they did there.
And then he had an Eric.
Something about you that I thought you were going to say that, to be honest. But,
yeah. Something about level 42, yeah. And he had an Eric Clapton cassette as well.
Nice.
So those two were the proper cassette albums, which he'd got by collecting points at the petrol station. So you collected points, and then you filled up a card and then handed it in and said, "I'll have the level 42 cassette, please." So he had those, and then he had he'd recorded Pink Floyd. So this is pre-Oasis at Nebworth. Pink Floyd played Nebworth in the late 80s.
Okay.
And they got played out on Radio 1 one Saturday night. So my dad sat there doing that whole taping off the radio thing. So he had this bootlegged Pink Floyd live gig as well. So yeah, those were literally the only 3 cassettes in his car. So as a result, I've got a real fondness for level 42.
Nice. I think that's all you need, isn't it, really? 3 cassettes.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think 3 cassettes, 3 artists, that's the perfect formula, I think, for sort of music back then in the car.
Yeah, maybe.
We should do that rather than 5-car garage, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
3 cassette car, yeah.
I think my dad's would have been Queen Elton John and the Rogue Billy Joel one that was it. Not Billy Joel, Billy Ocean.
Yeah.
Billy Joel.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember which one it is now.
Billy Idol?
No, quite the opposite, yeah. Billy Ocean was Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My Car.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah, Billy Ocean. Yeah, that was the one that was left in the car mysteriously, I think.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Any breakdowns of note, do you recall? Any run-ins with the RAC or AA?
No, you see, again, that is something as a child of the 80s, I'm supposed to have loads of breakdown stories as far as I'm concerned, but I guess Saabs and nearly new Vauxhall Novas didn't really break down.
Was your dad hands-on under the bonnet, Adam? Was he a drip tray on the drive sort of guy, was he?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Well, there wasn't a drip tray, but there were drips, yeah. I remember there being a stain on the drive, yeah. Yeah, that was the driver for the Nova, to be fair. I think he'd got sick of driving all week to work and back. And then at the weekend, what have I got to fix this weekend?
Yeah.
And then, so he was like, I'm going to get finance, get a newer car. And then that means I can actually have my weekends back. I won't have to sit under a car or lie under a car trying to fix it. So I guess maybe that's it. That's perhaps he was keeping on top of everything, and that's why we never had breakdowns. I mean, I can remember breaking down in a friend's car in the 80s. The dad had an Austin Princess.
Okay.
So I did experience a breakdown.
Oh, phew.
I vividly remember being sat at the side of the road with the hazards on thinking, crikey, I've never been through this before.
It's a rite of passage, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah. So I'm glad it happened, yeah. To be fair, I've got a real bad thing for running out of petrol. So I've got quite used to breaking down and having to be recovered myself, really. So my wife's got used now to me phoning and saying, can you get one of the cans out the garage and meet me at this point?
That's one of the things my wife panics about, I think, most in life, when I sort of say there's not much fuel left in this car. And she'll just sort of think that we're going to definitely break down on the side of the road. It actually happened yesterday, believe it or not. She actually flagged it up.
Yeah.
It got so low where it stopped saying there was any mileage left in the computer thing.
Yeah.
We made it to a garage, so all ended well.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, it's only happened a few times, I guess, but jumping back to that Ed Little episode, I'm similar in terms of having lost count of the amount of cars I've had.
Oh, okay.
So when I was in my 20s, I used to go to the auction and I'd buy a car and put it on Auto Trader and try and make a bit of pocket money, basically.
Yeah.
But as a result, it meant that I never wanted to fill a car because hopefully I was selling it, in a matter of days.
Okay.
So I just got in this habit of just running around on fumes, and just every now and then it would catch me out. So yeah. I don't have to do it now, but I think I must have an aversion to petrol stations or something. I don't know.
Have you made any car choices based on what your parents had when you were younger? Or have you maybe deliberately swerved those? Or
Yeah, I think I've deliberately swerved them, really. I think we've ended up with a bit of a nightmare. My dad has this theory about French cars. He never liked French cars. He's got this theory that the French never had an industrial revolution, so therefore, how on earth can their cars be any good? And so my first car was a Peugeot 205.
Okay.
To be fair, it did start out as a search for a Nova SR. I wanted as my first car a Nova SR. Didn't actually get a car until I left university. So by the time I was looking at Nova SRs, it was the early noughties, and they were all, buried and rusty. And
everyone wanted one, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were like the coolest thing about. Yeah, and I was just trying to be cool, I suppose. So as a result, I ended up with a 205 Roland Garros, which was, it was like the 205 XS, but it had like the half leather in it, and it was metallic green, and it was effectively, because again, all the 205 XSs have been thrashed as well. So this was like
that's just the step down, isn't it, from the GTI? Just following your father.
Yeah. So you've nailed it. Clearly, I have been unduly influenced. But no, it's quite amusing that I've had a lot of French.
I bet you and your dad have never bought a paid app, have you, Adam? You would just get the free apps all the time and light versions.
There are paid apps. I do have to justify the cost of Spotify to my wife. So maybe I was influenced. When I chose my wife, maybe I've ended up with a lady who is, why are you paying for an app? Yes. But I have to point out that it only costs about the amount of one CD, and I used to spend a lot more on CDs in the 90s. So yeah. But I've had a lot of French cars, and my brother, he didn't start driving until late, and my brother-in-law also started driving late, and so he'd got a Citroen AX. He passed his test, moved on.
Okay.
So I said to my brother, here you go, this Citroen AX will do the trick for you to learn in. So he started with a Citroen AX. Then he wanted to upgrade, and he was like, I do like my Citroen. So he got a Citroen Saxo, and now he's got a Citroen C2. So yeah, I think my dad must despair that, we've had all these French cars. He tried to raise us to not like French cars, and what on earth happened to us?
I thought we were going to hear the magic words there, Andy. So close to the.
We were close, weren't we?
I had the jar and the pound ready.
What's that then?
The BX. If we hear the word Citroen BX mentioned, we usually pop a pound in the jar for it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, never had one of those. No. Had a ZX. That's the closest I've got.
I don't see many of those, do you? ZX.
No.
Or the XM.
No.
Never see any of them either.
No, that's true. I saw a Xantia last week, which was a bit unusual to see. Yeah.
That was one of the memories that was vying for the early childhood memory. Was I remember the people opposite had a Citroen CX, not a BX.
Okay.
They had a Citroen CX each.
Naturally.
And it was on the drive outside my window. So literally over the road, the drive opposite had these two CXs lined up behind each other. So I was fascinated at an early age by, obviously they'd get in and the backs would lift up on the suspension, and this was absolutely fascinating to me. I probably only saw it once, but in my mind, I was there every morning watching these CXs rise up as they left the drive.
Yeah. My nan had a BX, actually. She had a sort of a beigey coloured one, which I think she bought nearly new, but that... Oh, hey! When we were on Harry's podcast, actually, the other day, we were chatting about it, and he asked us about our earliest car memories. That's probably one of them, is travelling down to the New Forest in this BX. And I remember the seats being really firm. There was like a little flap for the stereo in the front. Yeah, it was a pleasant car, actually. I saw a red one the other day as well.
Lovely.
So, there's a small soft spot for those.
Yeah, I always picture them as red. I had a friend at primary school. His mum had a red BX estate. They were farmers, and I think it was a thing to have a BX estate. I guess they go over fields quite well, don't they, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. What's the crack with this motorbike then? What is it, and when are you going to fix it?
Yeah, well, it's going to come down to me, I think, at this rate. My wife's not best pleased when I point that out to her, but because when I say it'll come down to me, it won't come down to me. I will have to find someone who can restore it, and I will deliver them a frame and 14 boxes and say, call me when it's ready, and don't tell Mrs. T what the bill was.
Are you going to pack those boxes into the back of a 3-door hatchback, preferably with your children already on the back seat?
I'll have to. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I've actually got, because my parents have gone down to one car now. So I have my dad's, the Mini Cooper that he bought in 07, brand new.
Yeah.
He had this idea that it was knackered and he was going to scrap it. It's only done 60k. And obviously he's had it from new. And my daughter turns 17 next month. So,
perfect.
So I was like, no, don't scrap it. She can have it. So
let her break down in it.
Yeah. To be fair, because it's been parked for quite a while, I did put a new battery on it, but it appears to be losing battery, losing charge. So I did find myself driving it the other day with no speedo, which was slightly disconcerting. But yeah, we'll fix that. But yeah, so the motorbike is a BSA B25 SS oil in a frame model.
Okay, wow.
You have to get all of that in, apparently.
Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From what, late 50s, early 60s, I guess, is it?
No, later 70s.
Okay.
That was also a 72k. So he had, in the late 70s, a 72k Saab 96 and a 72k BSA B25 SS oil in the frame model. But it's like a sort of trail bike type thing, I gather.
Okay.
Well, obviously, I do recall it from when I was tiny, but I don't think I had all the details to my mind. I just saw him going off on a two-wheeled vehicle. But yeah, no, I have seen them since. So they're a sort of trail bike. And back then they used to badge engineer Triumphs and BSAs. So there's a Triumph equivalent.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, when I was 16, I had a DT50, Yamaha DT50. And that was not because I was so much that I was into motorbikes, but I grew up in the sticks, and it was like, hang on, I can get on the road at 16. I don't have to wait till 17.
Yeah.
So I got a DT50, and I did think to myself, oh, actually, I do quite like motorbikes. They're good fun, these. But I never went beyond that. I then passed my driving test, and then it was back onto cars from then on. But I think this BSA would be quite a cool bike for me to run around on, really, once it was up together. Sadly, I don't think he'll do it now. And there's an element of sort of, if I got somebody else to do it whilst he knew it was happening, he'd probably be a bit sort of, oh God, I don't think they've done that very well, or he'd want the control. So I've probably just got to wait, and eventually I'm going to be presented with a garage that needs clearing out.
Yeah,
and yeah, I'll just chuck those bits, as you say, get the kids in the back, get the Mini, and see what I can cram into it, in and around them. In honour of Grandad.
Absolutely.
I was just going to ask, sorry, Andy, to jump in, where your dad went after the spate of Vauxhalls. Yeah,
so there was a Volkswagen Polo after that.
Okay.
But again, it was the 1.6 GL.
Naturally.
And a 3-door, of course. Yeah, 3-door on the steel wheels. So it just looked like a poverty spec CL, but it had the 1.6 engine in it. And again, they did the 1.4 16 valve, which was the sportier top one. But no, he had to have the 1.6. He's got this thing about a big engine in a small car. He likes that idea. That was in dragon green, so that nice dark metallic green they do.
Nice, yeah. I had one of those.
So yeah, but that got written off. It wouldn't have been very old. Again, I distinctly remember it. I was in a passenger seat. We turned into the industrial estate that's near them, and he was blinded by the sunlight and thought, okay, I'll just keep on going straight, as you do. And there's like a little traffic island, or there was. He bounced the car up the traffic island, and that wrote it off.
Crikey.
It was the strangest thing. It was sort of like a slow speed, and I was driving by then, so it was almost like, should I have said something? But you almost don't question your dad, Yeah. Oh, he knows what he's doing. Not sure this is going to work out. Oh, bang! Yeah, it hasn't. Yeah.
Whoops.
So that was the end of that. So he got the settlement for that, and he got a Ford Fiesta Z-Tech, but it was the 1.4. And I think he's never been a Ford guy, but my mum's first car was a Ford Fiesta that he got her. But, a Mark 1 S-Reg.
Okay, yeah.
70s S950. But yeah, I think Autocar and the likes at the time were saying this Ford Fiesta is the thing. Don't bother with a Polo or anything else. Just get a Fiesta. It's great. So he got this Fiesta Z-Tech. But by that time I was 21. and they were offering free insurance back then for the first year. So he was sat in the showroom. Thankfully, my mum was sat there with him because the salesman said, right, you got free insurance. You can put anyone over 21 on the insurance. So who do you want? And he said, oh, well, there's me and there's my wife. And she said, and there's Adam as well. He said, sorry? I said, well, there's Adam. He's 21. Oh, no, he won't need to drive it. Because, I mean, my dad knew how I drove, I imagine. Back then, I was in my mum's cars because I was still at uni, so I didn't have my own car. So I think he could tell that I was thrashing his cars around. And, you know, he didn't want that to happen to his. So it took a bit of a fight, but I think there was a principle at stake for my mum. She was like, well, you've let this guy thrash my cars around. It's about time he thrashed one of yours around. So I got added. Again, you know, Fiesta Z-Tech, but, you know, had the alloy wheels, the fog lamps. It was back in the late 90s when, you know, we used to drive around on side lights with your fog lamps on to show off that you had fog lamps, or some people did. Yeah. So I'd do that, you know, drive around on side lights with the fog lamps on because that was what all the cool kids were doing. Yeah. You know, and ignoring the fact that it was my dad's car. And whenever I could, I'd try and take the Fiesta out rather than my mum's car by then was a Corsa 1.2. And it was a 5-door. She was into the 5 doors by then. She tasted 5-door joy, and that was it. There was no going back. So Corsa 1.2 versus a Fiesta 1.4 Z-Tech. It was a no-brainer, really. So yeah.
The Corsa 5-door was an ugly car, wasn't it? Like the 3-door was a fairly good shape. The 5-door had it was just like they tried to squash too much into a very small car.
Yeah. It was always the way, wasn't it? It's like with the Nova, they did a 5-door Nova and it lost the box arches, didn't it? It had the round arches on a 5-door Nova. So yeah. She got the first Corsa was a 96P, and I'd been driving 6 months by then. And because my mum was a teacher as well, 1st of August, she didn't actually have anywhere to go. She had no work to go to for another month.
Oh, okay.
So it was decided that I could run the Corsa in. So 1st of August, I turned up at my summer job in a brand new P-Reg Corsa, you know, and I was really cool until about 5 minutes later, and a lad who was in the year below me at school turned up in a P-Reg Fiesta, and it was actually his. You know, he hadn't borrowed it off his mum. His parents had said, here's your new Fiesta, son. So for a second, it was like, wow, Adam, that's really cool. And then it was like, oh, hang on, that guy's a lot cooler. But yeah, my idea of running in, I knew about keeping the revs low on the tacho, but I thought you could sort of full bore accelerate up to those revs. So I'm not quite sure I was running the car in, you know, it's effectively, you know, flooring the throttle to 2,000 revs and then changing and then floor it again, you know.
That's quite a good period for Vauxhall, wasn't it, in terms of like build quality, I think, because those cars just seem to go on forever, those courses. And the Vectras in by that point, weren't they, I think? And they're sort of still floating around a few of those.
Yeah, people always sort of go on about Vauxhalls, but yeah, I've got, maybe it's because I grew up in them and they were the first cars I drove. I mean, I learned to drive in a Nissan Micra. That was the driving instructor's car was a Nissan Micra. But otherwise, you know, my first car I drove on my own was the Astra estate. And then it was 2 Corsas. And I really liked them, to be fair. I can't knock them. I thought, you know, I appreciate I wasn't a driving god back then, or I guess I thought I was. But, you know, I wasn't perhaps totally au fait with the nuances of a good car. But yeah, I have fond memories of them. They seemed pretty good to me. So, yeah.
I was going to ask about the car cleaning or lack of with your father. You kind of said he obviously kind of pressure washing his inner arches with a muddy puddle. He just wouldn't do it at all, or bucket of water on the.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, he really wasn't that guy who cleaned a car. Yeah, it was this Mini that we've got for my daughter now. It's a red one, so
apparently.
Yeah, going back to that idea of you know, sort of silver stuff. His first Mini was a Mini 1, which he got in silver. He then got a Mini Cooper 2 years later in silver, and it looked effectively like the Mini 1. It looked no different. So when he got the 07 Mini, it was about when he was retiring. So he was like, right, this is the last new car I'll probably buy. let's go crazy. So it is a red Mini Cooper with the white roof, the white wheels. But red Minis back then, I don't know if you've noticed, they have really bad lacquer peel.
Okay.
So this one, as a result of him not cleaning it either, it's horrendous. It's absolutely, there's lacquer peel on every panel.
Yeah.
The bonnet is the worst spot, probably. The bonnet almost looks as if it's had somebody's chucked some brake acid over it or something.
Yeah.
And it's had a real problem. So, yeah, so it's a lot cleaner now, the Mini, because I've gone crazy with the again, it's like the Ed Little episode, isn't it? Now we go all in for snow foam and citrus wheel cleaner and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
None of this chamoising and all that sort of stuff anymore.
Yeah,
I was going to say you've got to wonder about those rusty Saabs if that was the cleaning method, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you very much for joining us. First foray into motorbikes, I think, John, as well.
Yeah, no, it's good. And certainly a bit of a unique type of motorbike by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I'll show you pics when it's up together.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got any pictures from your father's back catalogue, then yeah, by all means, whiz them over and
just steaming through a muddy puddle or something like that.
Yes, yeah, if only, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it did occur to me I'll have to try and get some pictures dug out, because there are some. I don't think we have loads and loads of pictures from then, but yeah, I do recall there are some pictures of
yeah.
So yeah, I have to send some over.
Great.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and supporting the podcast as well.
Cheers. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Cheers, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Cheers. See ya.
Cool. Is that the first person? Oh, no, almost the first person we've had who we didn't actually know.
Who was the other one?
We had Becca, didn't we? Who had the Morris Minor.
Oh, yeah.
But apart from that.
Yeah. No, it was good. Quite good fun, isn't it, when you don't know anyone at all?
Yeah, when we kind of speak to them beforehand, I try not to find out too much.
Yeah.
Some podcasts, they're like, oh, fill out this interview type thing, tell us all the details, all these stories. I think if you do that, you almost sort of ruin it a bit.
Yeah, you lose a sort of spontaneity, don't you, I think?
Mm.
But no, there's some good stories in there from Adam, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think Nova SR is not a booze cruise car, is it?
It really isn't, no. I mean, it's not even the car that you would take on holiday, is it, these days? If I suggested to my wife that we're going away in that little car,
yeah,
the four of us, all the suitcases.
But you'd barely do a day trip in it by the time you've got packed lunch in the boot. Like,
I don't even think we'd do a little trip, Andy, to be honest. Especially if they've got gardening tools in the middle of Lidl, you know.
Yeah. Oh, your stuff then.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had a brainwave. I think another idea for My Dad's Car is the My Dad's Car compilation album for Christmas.
Yeah, we should jump on that, shouldn't we?
Got to have legs, isn't it? I guess each person that comes on can select a track or two, can't they? From
You're not suggesting that we do the covers. It's not like a Robson and Jerome type affair.
Oh, no. We need to pay the artists and then ask them to... But we could do that version if we find we run out of money. I guess... In essence, it would just be sort of 12 Queen songs, wouldn't it, I'd imagine? Because it just seems to be...
Yeah.
That seems to be a running theme with a lot, I guess. Not today, obviously, but...
Yeah.
Clapton, Rolling Stones.
Definitely. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and if there's anyone else that wants to reach out in a similar position to Adam, if you're enjoying the podcast, drop us a line and, might be nice to talk about your earliest car memory.
Cool, indeed. Well, thank you very much, John.
No worries. Pleasure.
We'll roll the credits. Thanks for listening to My Dad's Car Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please click subscribe, leave us a review and follow us on social media. If you'd like to support us further, you can buy us a coffee or sign up to give us a monthly bump start. You'll find details on our website, mydadscar.co.uk. Bye for now.